And so we're going to start off with a few comments from Chairman Thompson, and then we will have, help me out here just real quick.
Congressman Rob Brezhnev.
I'm the new guy around
Congressman
here.
Rob Brezhnev. Apologies. Too many names on the day here.
Keep calling that.
And Dan Muser's here today with us as well. So we have good expertise here today, and we're looking forward to a nice conversation. So we'll start off with some opening remarks, and I'll turn the floor over to Chairman Thompson.
Well, Dino, thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership with this great land-grant university and the College of Agricultural Sciences and Ag Progress. This is I don't know how many of these we've done. Maybe 16 of them, maybe 17. And I'm really proud to be joined by two of my close friends and great colleagues, Congressman Dan Muser and Congressman Rob Brezhnev. Rob actually serves on the House Agriculture Committee as well. I was so happy to get somebody to have my back, and he is doing that in a big way. He's doing such a great job. They're both from sort of that northeastern part of Pennsylvania. We will be joined by Secretary Russell Redding at some point. He'll be coming in, and Farm Bureau President Chris Hoffman will be joining as well. They're a bit tied up, so they're going to run a little late. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today for a very special discussion. I'll put it a little closer. How's that?
Much better.
All right, got a belly right up to it. Yeah. Cool. Well, just thank you for joining us for this special discussion. You know, and this has been a discussion that has really led to the shaping of the Farm Bill, and specifically the 80% of the Farm Bill that is now law. It was signed into law. I was able to include that within budget reconciliation, otherwise known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. And one of the most significant investments in agriculture in generations. Really a great farm bill. We can talk more about that when you get to Q&A if you got specific areas of interest. Let me again begin by offering my sincere thanks to Penn State for hosting, and to all of today's attendees, all of you and our panelists here. You know, for the first time in nearly 170 years, the chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture is from Pennsylvania. Proud to serve in that role. It's also the first time the Ag Committee chairman is a graduate of Penn State, Pennsylvania's land-grant university. And as chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, I've hosted official Farm Bill listening sessions across the country, probably 42 states, one territory. About 115 of those listening sessions. Some states we duplicated, certainly did a lot here in Pennsylvania. And the very first one that we held for this Farm Bill that we just, the Farm Bill 1.0, the first 80% we passed into law, that first listening session was a little colder weather. It was at the Farm Show, which we always host a listening session there as well, and we will continue to do that. Proudly with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, we have invested in American agriculture greater than ever before. The One Big Beautiful Bill is pro-work, pro-farmer, and pro-America. It includes sweeping reforms that protect the Pennsylvania family farms, restores accountability to safety net programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and delivers long overdue tax relief to our rural communities. America's farm families and rural communities really are the backbone of our great nation. They're there in terms of food security, in terms of financial security, economic security, and national security. I have seen our Pennsylvania farmers, ranchers, foresters, and producers work tirelessly 365 days a year to provide our communities, the nation, and the world with the most abundant, most affordable food, fiber, and fuel. A reoccurring theme I heard at home and as I traveled across the country was the frustration with the government's creation of barriers for our farmers. Our farm communities need a government that works for them, not against them. And that's why the One Big Beautiful Bill includes the first meaningful improvements to the farm safety net, or as I like to say, puts the farm back in the Farm Bill since 2002. It raises reference prices from 10 to 20%. It expands base acres, first time in generations, by 30 million acres nationwide for our farmers, new, young, beginning, veteran, and quite frankly, seasoned farmers that have never had access to base acres. It modernizes risk management tools that Pennsylvania producers depend on to withstand droughts and floods, wind events, and market shocks. These updates are especially important for Pennsylvania's diverse agriculture economy, where our farmers and producers often face unpredictable and overlapping challenges. Congress also secured $1.5 billion in livestock biosecurity, helping prevent the spread of foreign animal disease like animal swine fever, African swine fever, highly pathogenic avian influenza, and the New World screwworm that threatens our food security. And because, again, food security is national security. And the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers tax relief for Pennsylvania's small farms and rural businesses. It makes the death tax permanent, ensuring family farms can be passed down to the next generation. You don't have to sell off part of the farm at the passing of a generation in order to buy your farm back from the government. That's just wrong. The House, that is worthy of applause. And we made that permanent, not set to expire. The House Committee on Agriculture has worked exhaustively to craft an effective farm bill that meets the needs of our hardworking families, revitalizes rural America, and strengthens our national security. And I'm proud of the committee's dedication, and I will continue to work with my colleagues across the aisle and across the Capitol to deliver a Farm Bill 2.0, the remaining 20%. Never in my life did I think I'd ever be in a position to say it's going to be affordable because it's going to be just a little less than $8 billion. But in Washington terms, that's actually pretty affordable. We will pay for that. We're not going to raise taxes and drive up the costs on taxpayers to do that. And we'll do it in a bipartisan, bicameral way. Thankfully, a lot of solid farm policy was included and it has been achieved. And this legislation delivers on promises made to rural America. Now, I'm proud to champion these wins for Pennsylvania and the House Agriculture Committee, and we're just getting started. So thank you so much for attendance today, and I look forward to hearing from you all shortly. And now I yield to Congressman Dan Muser, a good friend and a great supporter of farmers and agriculture.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, let me figure this one out.
You got to lean right into
I'm
it.
right into it. How's that? You hear me a little better?
There you go.
I see a thumbs up back there. Thank you. Well, hey, it's very, very nice to be here with everyone. This is really a great day, right? Bringing Pennsylvania agriculture community together. Got young people. We got people who have been doing this a little while. Certainly learning a lot. It was great to hear from our secretary up there. I will assure you, on the federal level, and I do think within our state legislature as well, the farming industry, agriculture is top of mind on the both on a bipartisan basis with Republicans and Democrats. But I will tell you, there's more to the work that's done for farmers than tends to meet the eye than is found within the Farm Bill. And by the way, I do want to congratulate Chairman G.T. Thompson on first off being the first Pennsylvania chairman of the House Agricultural Committee in 145 years as a chairman?
170.
170.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? And that's really so meaningful for Pennsylvania. It's really meaningful for me to be able to call him any time of day or night, which we tend to do, and ask a question, get an answer, see what the timetable is going to be, or just ask a question that I was just asked while I was at a farm and couldn't necessarily answer it. And also Rob Bresnahan. I don't know how many people know Rob Bresnahan yet, but you're all going to know him extremely well as time marches on. He's already truly one of the most effective members. He's on the Agriculture Committee. He's on Transportation, two committees where he can really make a difference. A lot of that is his background. And as GT said, he's up in the Northeast. My district, by the way, is Eastern Central. I go from the New York border all the way down to all of Lebanon County into Dauphin County. So I have, I've got 6,000 square miles, 20% larger than the state of Connecticut. But since I'm a Republican, it's much more red than that, so that's sort of satisfying to me. But you hear often that food security is national security. We take that very, very seriously, right? Just as we take our energy policy seriously, just as we take our border policy seriously, and as we take, and with border and work visas, it's now time, now that we've secured the border, to truly get comprehensive immigration reform. So as certainly for the agricultural industry, for the service industry, and for all those other industries that many people develop into over time or from generation to generation. But also the economic factors, right? This tax bill that was passed within the BBB. Most of your businesses are small businesses. So what we did is assure that you didn't have a 25% tax increase by removing the 199A, which frankly, unfortunately, every one of my friends and colleagues to the left voted to raise your taxes. But we also bonus depreciation, R&D tax credits, just a number of very pro-growth initiatives. And as GT mentioned, the inheritance tax, which is so very important. Child tax credits, many things that are destined to allow growth. You are hearing a lot about trade. The idea with trade is to open up the world to all of America's goods that we make best, but make them that much more affordable and have fair deals out there. Not, frankly, free trade almost started becoming equivalent with unfair trade. We need to make trade fair. And by the way, GT's expression a little bit earlier on why this point in time in 2025 in particular this needs to get done, and we can answer that later. It just made so much sense as he spoke in the earlier luncheon. And folks, we're also focused on fiscal cleaning up our fiscal irresponsible spending, right? And that's done for you, but also for the next generation, to keep the dollar strong and to assure that the solvency of the programs that we have continue to stay in existence. I mean, we have over 100% debt to our gross domestic product. I mean, that's an unacceptable level. If we didn't have the reserve currency, the International Monetary Fund, as they've done to other countries that had that sort of debt, put them into austerity programs. I mean, that's serious stuff. Now, it's not going to happen to America because we are the reserve currency. But we must deal with this, and it will do nothing but strengthen our national security and our economy, and which, of course, will be very meaningful to you as you continue to pass your family farms down to the next generation. But I'll leave it at that, and I'll turn it back over to the Dean.
All right. Thank you. Now my pleasure to once again introduce and recognize a gentleman that has quickly risen to a level of leader within the House Agriculture Committee, making sure that serving all those who produce our food, process our food, and consume our food, Congressman Rob Bresnahan.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Congressman Muser, for that warm introduction. Dean, for facilitating this. And this is my first Ag Progress Days, so thank you to Penn State for facilitating this. Our 4-Hers that are here. I was just at the Wayne County Fair this past weekend, where I am the proud owner of a hog. This is my first time that I went through the process of deciding what kind of cut I need, but I'm a highway contractor in my last life. This is a relatively new phenomenon for me. I'm new to public service, and it is truly an honor to serve Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District. I represent Luzerne County. Well, Congressman Muser and I share Luzerne County, but Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, Wayne County, Pike County, and Monroe County. And when I was first going through the process of establishing what committees I was interested in serving on, agriculture, the original A committee, as the chairman has always reminded us, was obviously something that was really important to me. Agriculture in Pennsylvania's 8th congressional district is about a $65 million industry, split 60-40 on crop to meat products and various different poultry. Dairy is about $10 million. And what's really important is the family dynamic. The average farm in our district is 179 acres, with over 95% of them being family farms. So something that was always extremely conscientious to me was the ability to pass down that family farm from one generation to the next. And specifically, our locality and demographic, at the close proximities to New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, we were seeing a lot of these family farms struggle and their inability to be able to financially offset the cost to be able to pass it and continue the tradition. So obviously preserving our family farms is extremely paramount of a concern to me. And I'm really excited that my first agriculture-related bill is the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act, which has gotten truly bipartisan support with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau Association, Feeding Pennsylvania, Feeding America, the National Milk Producers Federation, National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, National Farmers Union, Save the Children, Feeding the New York State, and Northeast Organic Farming Association. And ultimately, the idea is we talk about hunger, we talk about the food security challenges, but sometimes we're not talking about the local farmers that produce this. And this is a way that we can marry two of those different ideas together by supporting our local farmers, supporting an organizational need, and marrying all of that together. So I think these events are so important for us to be able to take your voice back to Washington so we know how we can better represent, how we can better advocate, because ultimately that's our job. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend that I am an expert in the agriculture industry, but I recognize the significance and what vital role it plays in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's universe. So I am just incredibly grateful to be here. I'm excited for what's next. Thank you to the chairman. Thank you to Congressman Muser. How are we doing down there? And thanks for facilitating this. And please use our office as an advocate in any which way. Eric is from our team here. He traveled all the way from Washington. I'd like to make sure our team sees what they're fighting for each and every day, where he will be spending the next week and a half in northeastern Pennsylvania finding better ways that we can represent in Washington. So thanks for having me.
Rob, thank you, Rob. Rob, congratulations on that first hog buy. I assure you there will be many 4-H and FFA critters in your future with the county fairs. And now I'm pleased to recognize a friend of mine, a former constituent actually, until he threw me out of McAllisterville. No, redistricting. But a really good friend, former National Hog Farmer of the Year, and he was a first-generation farmer, very successful, and now president of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, Chris Hoffman.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson. It is an honor to be here, and I apologize for being late. This is one I did not want to be late to, but when they asked you to take the governor around and show him what we are doing in Pennsylvania, I'd want to take that opportunity to make sure that if you were in the luncheon, he says that I asked for way too much more money, so I wanted to show him why I'm asking for that money, and so it really makes sense that we take those opportunities when we get them out here where agriculture is happening and showing what the real progress we're making as we think about the next generation of agriculture. But I can't say enough about the folks sitting up here at this table when you think about the support of agriculture. From Chairman Thompson as he's leading the U.S. House Ag, making sure that the Farm Bill, getting it done at least 80%. I guess we're at 80% in the big beautiful bill. And think about what that means to the average farmer in Pennsylvania, like the safety net programs that we have, and one of the things that making permanent the death tax, right, where our farms continue to go up in value, but yet we don't have those dollars to be able to actually pay when someone passes away. And so, those things are really great, the depreciation as well. I think there's been a lot of thought and a lot of work going into it, and I appreciate the work that all three of you have done in Congress to make sure that Pennsylvania farmers are actually being able to be successful. And as someone who had their first grandson born 6 weeks ago, to me, the generational thing becomes even a stronger push for me to think about what we have to do. What is our job as leaders to make sure that we are leading the way to get through our part of life on a farm, but make sure we're setting it up for the next generation, because that next generation is the most important, whether it's water, soil, air. All those things are so important to the future generations. And so I think as we move forward, it's really, really important that we work together as a team. Our state is well engaged when it comes to agriculture. And then at the federal level, we're seeing those same things. And I'm really anxious to continue our partnership and as we work together to really make a difference as we go forward. And I really appreciate your bill, Congressman Bresnahan, for getting that from farmers to the food banks. Right? I think that is just a miraculous program that we can take from the farms, go right in to feeding our friends and neighbors who are in need. Because as I listened on Monday, it's really, really serious when 1 of 7 people go to bed hungry every night in Pennsylvania. And so it's our job. We live in the land of plenty, and so we need to make sure that we're making sure we have food for everyone out there. So I look forward to the Farm Bill 2.0. Save the bacon. We need to save that.
Everyone loves bacon.
Everyone loves bacon. But we got some big jobs ahead of us that we need to protect agriculture, protect our rights as farmers to be able to do the things that we know is the right, sensible way of moving forward. So with that, thank you for the invitation to be here, and I'll yield back my time. I like when you said that, so I'm going to use it.
Use it all you want, Mr. President. Hey, before I yield Dean Ott to facilitate taking questions, I just want to reflect on process, because looking out over this audience, your attendance here really reflects the process that we used to really pass the most effective, highly invested farm bill, to put the farm in the farm bill, using 2 principles that really were important to me. And the first of those was doing things from the outside in. In government, I suspect sometimes in Harrisburg maybe, and certainly in Washington and all across the nation, when there's a problem that needs to be solved, the routine procedure will be to identify 4 or 5 so-called experts on a particular issue that you're trying to resolve or fix or solve. And we all know hopefully you know the definition of an expert. X stands for unknown quantity. That tends to be what we get from them. And a spurt is a drip under pressure. And we lock them in a room, and we don't let them out until they come up with some legislative language to make the fix. And then we'll take that and we'll legislate it. But unfortunately, what we hadn't done, we really hadn't touched base or brought to the table the people that are impacted by the problems, the issues that need to be done. We didn't do that with this farm bill. The part that's been completed, and quite frankly, the 20% that remains. We took this show on the road. We've been talking about farm bill at the Pennsylvania Farm Show that first Saturday in January, and we've been talking about the farm bill here. I've been talking about that farm bill on farms in everywhere from the great Allentown Fair to Armstrong County and everywhere in between, and all over the nation, because we did it from the outside in, bringing you to the table and bringing it back to Washington, and it made it meaningful. The other principle that kind of reflects that is we did it in a tripartisan way. We didn't do it in a partisan way in terms of the content and the ideas. By tripartisan, I mean bringing Democrats and Republicans to the table, but as important, bringing you to the table, the key stakeholders in, the people who produce food, process food, and consume food to the table. To me, that's tripartisanship, and that's the best way to get things done, and that's why we had the success that we did. So thank you to all of you who have given input over the past few years, because your input really has informed this process. And Dean, I yield all the time to you at this point.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson. Appreciate your comments. Congressman Bresnahan, Congressman User, we met here today, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you for your leadership. President Huffman, thank you for being there. Thank you for advocating for agricultural industries. I think there's going to be someone walking around with a microphone here in a minute, so I'm going to take the privilege here of really asking a first question. And I'm going to direct it to you, Chairman Thompson. Many places where I hear you speak, you talk about science, technology, and innovation, and certainly as Pennsylvania's land grant institution, part of a national land grant network, that science, technology, and innovation is what we do. It's what we were built for. Every development, every advance in agriculture started at some point in the mind of a scientist in a lab working to try to answer hard questions and turn those answers into solutions. I can't tell you how grateful me and our colleagues around the nation were to see more than $100 million in mandatory spending for the Research Facilities Act show up in H.R. 1. Can you tell us a little bit about what your hopes are for that money and how it might be able to transform what we can do?
Well, American agriculture that's my definition. I know the Dean shares it, as many others do now, too. We've been talking about it so much, preaching it, actually. That American agriculture is science, technology, and innovation. And it always has been. I point to those early settlers who came in on the East Coast. They came into Philadelphia or New York, and they unloaded their wagon, or they built their wagon, or they bought their wagon, and they headed west. And a lot of them, especially those of German descent, which were the early settlers in Pennsylvania, they got to our fertile valleys, and they looked around and said, "This looks like home. Mm-hmm. It's great soil, lots of water, temperatures weren't too bad," and they settled down. They unloaded their wagon. Now, for some, they kept going. And they kept going until, well, if you've ever been in places in Arizona, I swear some of them kept going till the wheels fell off. Because before irrigation, there was just, I can't imagine why they'd ever stop there. But even those early settlers, and with irrigation, by the way, Arizona's a breadbasket today. It's part of that science and innovation technology. And even those early settlers, they were engaged in science. Now, it was simple, pretty crude and rudimentary trial and error. But their purpose was righteous. They just wanted to raise enough more food so that more of their family members would survive to the next year. And today, American agriculture is so sophisticated, and we are blessed by that. And it's also not static. It's dynamic. It's ever evolving. You look at the issues, look at the opportunities, whether it's seed technology or with livestock, how we've increased production with our livestock, how we've increased production of growing more on, quite frankly, on less acreage. And so, and one of those is the leading role that our land grant universities play, like Penn State University. We need them to be able to not just educate, but to attract and educate the best and the brightest. Because these are the future agriculturalists. These are the folks that are going to help us feed, not just the nation, but the world as the population grows and increases. And unfortunately, to some degree, acreage shrinks. In Pennsylvania, we've lost 200,000 acres over a 5-year period. That's just Pennsylvania. But we're producing more food today because of that application. So we need these research facilities. Whatever they might be, as I like to say, there's a lot of great, and certainly at Penn State, and I hate to admit this, the last land-grant university I was at was Ohio State. Don't hate me. Don't like their football team, but they're a great land-grant university.
Yes,
they do a great job in agriculture, which makes me feel much better about them, actually. There are a lot of successful alumni at land-grant universities who are very generous and will make contributions to the universities. We have it at Penn State, and you'll see their name on a classroom building, which is great. But as I like to say, other than Chris Hoffman, I haven't met anybody who wants to put their name on a sow barn, But we need a sow barn. We need, climate-controlled agriculture facilities, what we would typically think of as a greenhouse that can go horizontal and vertical, and things where we can do experimental work in our land grants, and to be able to train the best and the bright, or as I like to say, I use my own self. I went to Penn State, but I was not probably average. I was probably below average. To be able to take somebody that's average and give them a world-class education so that they do great things going forward. And I was really proud to be able to provide $155 million in mandatory funding. That means Congress isn't going to vote on it. Every year it'll be competitive, where land-grant universities, research universities, agriculture research universities will be able to apply for that funding. Although I do look forward to my alma mater being successful with that program.
Thank you, Chairman. And with your permission, I'll recognize our late arrival, Secretary Redding, who was showing the governor around. So Secretary Redding, I wonder if I could throw you a question real quick. Talk about the essential partnership between state and federal governments when it comes to supporting agriculture here in Pennsylvania and nationwide.
Yeah, Dean, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you. It's always a bit dangerous to come to a meeting late because I'm not really sure what's been said, but just let me point out, I think the value of this town hall really demonstrates that partnership, right? At the end of the day, the intersect, as we've come to appreciate, is at many points, right? We can do things as a state government, but at the end of the day, we need townships and counties and federal partners and a lot of sort of stakeholders. So we are seeing that particularly in feeding programs and research programs and all of the stuff that everyone's come to appreciate from their government is done really in the full frame of a partnership. We're proud of that partnership. It is an important time, I think, for all of us to appreciate partnerships. I am more aware today than ever of where those partners are and what they provide and what they do for us, both as a farmer, as a citizen, but certainly as a secretary. But you cannot do what we do without the full support of Congress and federal government. And I'm pleased that Bill Beam is here and our federal partners and Amy Van Blarken-Lackey with EPA, just to point out a few, that these are folks that every single day were involved and engaged in partnership. So thank you, Dean. Certainly the most important partnership that we have is with you in the land grant mission. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you, Secretary. And I'll now have our person with the microphone walk around and take some questions. Please try to keep your questions to the point, and also if you want to direct them to someone, please let us know who you'd like to direct them to.
Well, first, I'm a fish out of water at this event. Growing up in a big city, the closest I have come to living on a farm is marrying into a big Iowa farm family, 1,000 acres and 16 kids, more than 55 years ago. But I love buying nearly all the food I eat from local farmers at the Bollesburg Farmers Market and Center Markets and elsewhere. And I want to strongly support the local farming economy. My question is especially directed to the chairman. As chair of the House Agricultural Committee, I'm wondering how you plan to repair the damage that is being done to the local farming economy by the cuts to 5 agricultural related programs. The USDA Local Foods Purchasing Assistance Program, the USDA Local Foods School Purchasing Program, the USDA National Institute for Food and Agriculture, proposed cuts to SNAP, and ending virtually all of the USAID funding. The local foods purchasing assistance program helps support 189 family farms in Pennsylvania and 14 food banks. And the ripple effects through the community are much more pressure coming to the food banks and to the church food pantries. The local food bank lost $70,000 for buying fresh produce this summer, and that affected, I think, 5 or 6 local family farms in the area, in this county. The local food school purchasing program, one of the people who was written up in the paper was Happy Valley Meat Company. They support buy from 6 family farms, and their food goes to 150 school districts, including State College School District. So that's been cut. USDA National Institute for Food and Agriculture in the College of Ag, a 40% decrease in funds for research threatens research on diseases harming corn crops that are major PA farm crop. And that will not only decrease corn production, but it, as you said, reduces food security and national security because it's going to harm that so much. Proposed cuts to SNAP, which will not just cut benefits for those who are eligible, but will impact many thousands of Pennsylvania farmers. The multiplier effect of $1 of SNAP money is $1.50 throughout the economy. Ending virtually all of the USAID funding for sending food grown by PA farmers to countries where it's desperately needed also has an impact on farmers. So the cuts ripple through the local economy.
Yeah. Well, let me address those. You've outlined them nicely. Great job, and I really appreciate that. I'll try to, as succinctly as possible, to address them. Starting with those local food programs, they were never authorized by Congress. So it's no surprise with an administration change. This happens frequently. If an administration has taken liberties to in a rogue maverick way, no matter how righteous the program is, create a program. If it's not authorized by Congress, it's not going to continue beyond the scope of that administration. And so that was, the food or the farm to food banks, and there were 2 programs, and then farm to schools. I thought they were really good ideas. I begged Secretary Vilsack, who is President Biden's Secretary of Agriculture, to work with Congress to bring us those proposals to legislate them, and he refused. He thought he had the authority, and I question whether he had the authority to create those programs, but also knew that they were going to end whenever his tenure as secretary and President Biden's tenure as president would expire. I think the righteous programs, we do not have authority over farm to schools. That's the Education Workforce Committee. I will fight for that there. I'm a senior member on that committee. But we do have jurisdiction over local food programs, and quite frankly, Congressman Bresnahan's already addressed that in his opening remarks. I know how passionate he is about that program. It is a great program. I think it's good. The closer we can get our food pantries, consumers to our farmers, the better off. So he has a proposal. I'm going to work hard. We're going to work hard together to put that into the Farm Bill 2.0. I got to figure out how to pay for it yet, because we don't raise taxes, we don't increase debt, we do things like we did with Farm Bill 1.0. We paid for things, and so. But I think we're going to get there. We're both dedicated to getting that done. On the research side, we've actually increased research. The funding and the investment in research under Farm Bill 1.0 significantly increases agriculture research. I think Penn State's going to be a beneficiary of that, given the quality of the researchers we have and the just the great vision they have on research. And then on top of that, I already talked about the Research Facilities Act, which is $155 billion, right? Million. Yeah, annually. That's mandatory spending. So we don't have to wait for approval by Congress. They just have to apply for it. It'll be competitive, but I have great confidence in my university that they're going to do well with that. The SNAP program, we didn't cut anybody's benefits. The benefits are the same dollar amount as what they are, and what they have been. There are 3 groups of individuals who will not get SNAP going forward. And I really appreciate you asking this question, because this is, there's just a lot of misinformation out there. Mostly folks who, well, you figured it out. Mostly folks who are just being told the wrong information. The 3 groups of individuals that will not be eligible for SNAP going forward, the first of which are individuals who are here illegally. And they've never should be eligible, but there are states, I don't think Pennsylvania, but certainly New York, California, and others that are not following the law, and they're providing. And quite frankly, SNAP benefits, which is a wonderful benefit for supplemental nutrition. It's not meant to provide all their needs, but it's to supplement everything else they do in order to get their food. That is reserved for U.S. citizens, and there's certain exceptions. If you're here with legal permanent residence, which is a green card, if you're part of the folks who worked with our military in Iraq and Afghanistan, and because of that, your lives and your family's life was endangered, and you came to our country, you're going to be eligible. So there are some exceptions. That's the first group. The second group that will not continue with SNAP. Now, everybody gets SNAP for 3 months. And the question is, what about after 3 months? That second group are folks who kind of work their way out of poverty, and we help people do that. That $1.1 trillion over 10 years that we invest in nutrition, and that is how much we spend. The whole Farm Bill itself is about $1.5 trillion. Most of it is nutrition. Now, we have balanced it a bit with what we've done. Part of that money is not just the SNAP benefits and the TFAB, which is the emergency assistance for food banks, which will continue to be available for everyone. It pays for SNAP employment and career and technical education. So if you're between the ages of 18 and 64, you're able-bodied, you don't have a child in your household under the age of 14, you are required to get more than 3 months to be, one of the things you're able to do is to get support. We will pay for your SNAP employment and career and technical education. I'm not talking about a bachelor's degree. We're talking about a certificate, a specialization. There's a lot of these jobs out there today. So that group of people are going to work their way out of poverty. They're going to climb the ladder of opportunity and wake up and not be living in poverty. They're actually going to have more money in order to be able to meet their nutritional needs and their other needs. Education does that. Education is a pathway to opportunity. And then the third group are folks who just choose not to continue with SNAP. And there's one of three things that they can do to get more than 3 months of SNAP benefits. And the first one is to be working an average of 80 hours a month. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people that are doing that, a lot of working poor that are eligible for SNAP, and they are working today. It's about 24% of SNAP recipients. Center County is really high on that. We have the lowest unemployment in Center County, if you're from Center County, but we have the highest underemployment because of the number of hospitality sites that we have where people are paid minimum wage. So you can work an average of 80 hours a month. You can perform an average of 80 hours of community volunteer service a month to be able to continue to be eligible for SNAP. I think there's a lot of places to do that, obviously. And the last one is you be engaged in an average of 80 hours of SNAP employment and career and technical education. There will be, granted, there will be people who will choose not to do an average of 80 hours of either work, volunteer service, or education, and that will be their choice. I don't understand making that choice, but this is America, and you make decisions. So those are the SNAP USAID, I've always been a big fan of USAID and the programs that they have. But it was disgusting to find out the types of things that USAID was funding around the world, wasting U.S. taxpayer dollars and not making a difference in people's lives. And so the food part of that is going to be run by the State Department. State Department ran USAID. That agency is going away. And so helping folks around the world that are living in poverty, food insecurity, those programs are going to continue. They're just going to take a different shape and have better oversight. So great question, 4 great questions all packed into one. Thank you for that.
Next question over here.
Jim Rosenberger, statistician and farmer. And Secretary Reddy, with you here, GT. Question. I don't know how many people know it, but whole milk is not legally sold in schools, is not legally available. What do your experts say about that, GT? And I'm curious whether your new Farm Bill has solved that problem.
I wish it did. It didn't. We don't have jurisdiction over education and workforce, although I lead on whole milk for healthy kids. I have looked at what a disaster it was when they took 2% in whole milk and flavor out of our schools back in 2010. And it was all done under the premise that kids were getting fat. Just call it what it is. You know, measured by a test that I never do well on, that bariatric measurement index. I always flunk that one. And, you know, and statistics show that kids have actually gotten bigger when they stop serving whole milk and flavor, because you're going to drink something, and they tended to drink high sugar substitutes or highly caffeinated beverages, which I can't imagine is really good for keeping their attention in the classroom. And so we have the good news is we have passed out of the House Education Workforce Committee my bill once again, and it passed out of committee. And the even better news, it has passed by voice, which means it was unanimous, out of the Senate Agriculture Committee. Unfortunately, there are 3 senators, 3 Democratic senators who, it was really interesting. They put a hold on the bill because it looked like, I mean, the rest of the Democrats and the Republicans wanted to hotline it. They just wanted it to pass. They didn't want to have to vote on it. You know, it makes sense. It's nutrition. It's great for dairy farmers. And these 3 are put a hold on it. And when we reached out to them, they said, well, your boss has a great piece of legislation. And we believe it's the only piece of child nutrition legislation that's going to pass in the 119th Congress. So they wanted to hang they had some things they wanted to pass, which are really poison pills that they wanted to make a part of it. So Senator Thune, who's a Republican majority leader, has embraced this process, and he's looking for a pathway to get it out of the Senate. I passed it out of the House last Congress, and then Senate didn't do anything. The Senate needs to get 60 votes. It's strongly bipartisan in the House, but you got to get 60 votes in the Senate, so that's why I'm having the Senate go first. So I hope in a couple months here, hopefully by October, I have good news to announce on that bill. The other bill I introduced in a bipartisan way was to restore to the WIC program, Women, Infant, and Children. And that's an important, my wife and I were on WIC when we were first pregnant, based on our income. And it's a great program. It provides, it's prescriptive, nutritional things, but they don't allow 2% in whole milk, which makes no sense whatsoever for unborn children, newborn children, and pregnant moms or nursing moms. And so we have introduced that in a bipartisan way in the House to restore that. So, yeah.
Next question over here.
Is it on? Yeah. Good afternoon. Thanks to all of you. This is a question for the 3 members of Congress. And this morning, Representative Thompson mentioned some changes in the budget bill that would increase or make some improvements to aid that's available to farms facing disasters such as droughts and floods. So that's great news to help farmers. But the budget bill also removed some of the targeted support for practices that help increase resilience to some of the extreme weather or help farmers sequester carbon to prevent some of these problems with weather, such as cover crops, agroforestry, intensive grazing, riparian buffers, reduced tillage. So I'm wondering if that might be changed in Farm Bill 2.0, and also if the Conservation Reserve Program might be extended in Farm Bill 2.0. Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you. Conservation is really important to us. We actually increased the conservation funding 25% in the baseline. And that also doesn't include what's called the Sustains Act, which President Biden signed. That was my legislation. It created a public-private partnership with USDA for more conservation funding using private dollars. So individuals, wealthy individuals, corporations could write a check to USDA under the Sustains Act, which is law, and that money has to be used for conservation. It could be earmarked. I didn't mean it to be that, but the example I like to give, representing the Allegheny National Forest, we have this invasive called the glossy buckthorn, and it is choking out the hardwoods in the Allegheny National Forest. So we have the most valuable hardwoods in the world. And so it is possible that somebody could write a check and dedicate it to taking on that invasive species. That's a conservation practice. And so unfortunately, 3 years and the Biden administration, Secretary Vilsack never implemented it. Secretary Rollins is doing their due diligence, and I think we're going to see that roll out. I am prohibited from sharing the names of the corporations who have knocked on my door. You'd recognize the names of these companies, wanting to know, when can we write the check? We want to get our climate credential, and they could do that by making that contribution. And so conservation's in a really good place. We have kept the principles that have made conservation successful, and that is voluntary, locally led, and incentive-based. So all the things that you talked about, riparian buffers and the whole 9 yards, that's still being funded, and funded in an increased way, a significantly increased way. CRP is the longest existing conservation program that we have, and has never been modernized. So one of the things that we will do in 2.0, everything I talked about right now has already been put into law. Modernizing CRP wasn't eligible, but we are looking to modernizing that, really focusing on acreage that is high productive acreage, class 1, class 2, class 3, to really not just preserve, but to enhance. And so some of this, like CRP, some of the ones where we focus on animal habitat, we're trying to go the direction of using acreage that's not as productive for crops. Now, I actually believe some of these CRP practices may enhance soil health, and in the future, those places that are food deserts, so to speak, in terms of soil health, may become very productive in the future based on those practices. So I think you'll like what's in the conservation title. As former chairman of that subcommittee, I'm very pleased with the significant increase in investments and what we're doing there. And supplemental assistance, thanks for mentioning that. For those who hadn't heard, as a part of crop insurance, we've made crop insurance more affordable, more versatile, so we're going to see more specialty crops have access to crop insurance products. Vegetables, watermelons, all the things that are specialty crops that do not have crop insurance policies that those farmers can purchase today. There will be an increase in those in the future. And it'll be more versatile because we're going to do some supplemental disaster relief as a part of crop insurance. Now, we're not going to cover everything. That would be impossible, because about the time you figure out what nature's going to throw at you, we get some crazy event that makes it hard on the farmers. But for the most part, droughts, floods, probably wind events. In the future, with the changes we made in the near future, because this is actually not a 5-year farm bill, we made it a 6-year farm bill, retroactive to 2025. Those disaster relief will be included in the crop insurance policies that people will buy. Big change, real big change.
Chairman, surprisingly, I see we're up on the hour, and I don't know if there was any. Oh, 3:30, I'm sorry. Okay, is there another question then?
So we got
Apologies.
more time.
Apologies. Yeah, do you have anything you'd like to add to those comments?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think we've seen a lot of projections in the OMB projected budget. I mean, certainly it's a wide range of different conversations. And I don't know if we've actually had a chance to really even break it down inside of our various different committees, but I think it's important that exactly like we're doing this so we know what to be looking for and to be keeping our antennas up on. A program that I've been a vocal supporter of is the BRIC program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. And perhaps over time that has gone off of the beaten path of how it was originally intended, but I represent northeastern Pennsylvania, where we are not immune to historic levels of casualty from flooding. In 2023, we actually had a fatality because of a flash flood, and dating back to 1972, slightly before my time, but we saw the devastating impact of Hurricane Agnes, and 2011, where the west side of the Susquehanna was totally devastating. And something that I've been trying to bring back is a variation of the BRIC program, and perhaps some of these different programs reincarnate themselves perhaps under a different name or under a different funding source or opportunity. So certainly thank you for mentioning that, because when you get into the weeds, there's sometimes some unintended consequences to some of the programs. Under rural development.
Title, Farm Bill
2.0, Farm Bill 2.0. And I think that's also going to be a great catch basin, no pun intended, but to try to encapsulate a lot of areas that have fallen through the cracks. And the fact that we have another opportunity after getting through budget reconciliation to really move the ball forward. And the fact of the matter is Farm Bill 2.0 is alive and well and actively having meaningful, spirited dialogues within our different committees.
Congressman User, anything to add?
Well, that was a pretty thorough answer from our chairman, and boy, oh boy, every time I listen to him, I learn something, and hopefully everybody is. But I just want to add that, look, GT, I don't know if there's a member, and all of us do, care more about the SNAP program, or as much as you possibly could. I mean, it's a very, very important program. Now, on the same note, keep in mind something. In 2019, the SNAP program was running at $60 billion a year. This past year, during COVID, it went up to 110. In 2024, it was at $100 billion. Okay, that's 66% more than it was in 2019. In 2019, because of the growth of the economy, we had 2.5 million more Americans working. So the whole thing kind of works together. I mean, we got pro-growth initiatives, we got lower taxes, we're putting more money back in people's pockets, we'll be creating more good jobs, and these programs need to be sustained. Now, everything that's being done with this is not cuts. It's audits. It's an audit initiative to make sure those who are receiving these programs are, in fact, eligible. And if that's the case, then so be it. We've got to deal with those revenues. But also just keep in mind this. In 2019, when I got into Congress, our national debt was $19 trillion. Today, it's $37 trillion. Back in 2019, we had a $600 billion annual deficit. Okay, and everybody said, oh my God, that's terrible. Trump is doing nothing but spending money. Today, it's $1.8 trillion a year, right? Our service on our debt is almost $1 trillion. That goes towards nothing but paying our interest on our debt. So our government needs just a realistic review And there's no reason that we can't go back to pre-COVID dollars and that add in even the 20% inflation that occurred, frankly, during the Biden years. And we'd still be spending $700, $800, $900 billion less than we are today. And I would just add, just briefly at the end here, every time I look at the GT's Farm Bill, I call it GT's Farm Bill, any initiatives that were in the BBB for agriculture, it was all positive. Whenever there was a reduction in funds, it was a program, as GT said, it was either established without Congress's authority or during COVID. A lot of it's just being shifted. You could say, oh, there's $1 billion that has been removed. No, it's been put into another category where there's a higher level of scrutiny and accountability. GT earlier mentioned Brooke Rollins. She is a fabulous Secretary of the Agriculture. She is reviewing all of this, and the last thing that she or anybody's going to be part of is removing funds from people or food from those who need it in the United States of America and preferably worldwide.
Well, and since we're talking SNAP, this is probably a good place to talk about 2.0, and at least my vision for Farm Bill 2.0 in the nutrition title. And we're not talking about raising taxes or going into debt. We'll figure out how to pay for this within agriculture. It won't come out of nutrition. That's my commitment. But there are two populations who currently are not SNAP eligible that I am committed to expanding access to when it comes to SNAP. And one are individuals who were formerly incarcerated for drug felonies. There's been a lot of resistance to that in the past. But in my mind, if we can provide a little bit of nutrition assistance for a returning citizen, somebody coming out of prison, to help them turn their life around and become a productive citizen and not go back into prison, which is so expensive on the state, on the county, on local municipalities, I think that's the righteous thing to do. And so that is one of my goals as we work on 2.0, is to be able to have those individuals who are returning citizens, formerly incarcerated, to be eligible. The other one are families that have adult children that are still in high school, 18 to 21 years old. They tend to be individuals who are, these kids are adult children, usually have disabilities. That's why they're still in school. And if you are a parent of a child with a disability, or you know someone who is, the parents are always looking to the future. What happens after they pass? Have they set their child on a path to be able to be sustainable, to be able to earn their way and meet their needs? And so they tend to engage these kids in employment, evenings, weekends, summers. And we as a government have always counted the income from those adult children against the eligibility for SNAP for the family. Those kids need to be banking that money so that when they're done with school and they move on to whatever comes next in life, they have some resources. And so that would also be corrected. And then the last thing would like to do in 2.0, I got to find a way to pay for this stuff yet.
We'll figure it out.
All right, we'll figure it out. I love it. I love the confidence. Is doing away with the poverty cliff. Our welfare programs have a poverty cliff. If you earn $1 more than an arbitrary set amount, they pull the entire rug out from underneath you. If you own a vehicle, there's $1 more in some arbitrary value that somebody has set, they pull the complete rug out from underneath you. Best way I can illustrate that was a young lady that was working downtown State College in a restaurant, and I talked to her boss, the owner of the restaurant, and he talked about how she reached out, she wanted to meet with him because she wanted to talk about 50 cents an hour less than what she was being paid. Hard worker. She, tips. In the day, she's not going to pay tax on $6,000 worth of tips, but we didn't have that back then. And if it was just her, I think she would have taken that risk to do better and better and better and lose those benefits. But she had 2 little babies that she had to be thinking about. And so she actually came in and negotiated to make 50 cents less an hour so that they wouldn't pull the rug out from underneath her. Now, in the Agriculture Committee, we can't deal with traditional welfare and TANF and that kind of thing, but we can deal with SNAP and those benefits. And that is something we're committed to doing, of getting rid of that poverty cliff and create really a ladder of opportunity. So those are three things going to cost some money, but we're going to try to work hard to make that happen with Farm Bill 2.0.
I wonder if I could just direct a quick question down the end to President Huffman. You've talked about the Save the Bacon Act, and can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on interstate commerce and its effects?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question, Deanot. I think we're all about states having rights and being able to set rules within their state. But when a state sets a rule that actually goes against what the other 49 states are doing, it makes it really difficult for us to be able to sometimes reach a way of being able to produce that product and to get to a place where we're able to be successful in our business without losing a huge amount of money, as well as keeping our industry solid. And so as California and Massachusetts has decided to put together standards in the swine industry, in the growing practices of our animals, it has really kind of created a chaotic system where you have to be doing things that aren't even really a veterinarian approved practice. It's not something that the things that we're doing is actually creating more of an animal welfare than being able to take care of them in a better, humane way. And so as I think about the Save the Bacon Act, right, that's in place, is California can continue to have their producers in their state produce the products that they want to have produced. Massachusetts can do the same thing. And then it's up to a free market, right? If you like to buy organic versus traditional, it's what you can do when you go to the grocery store. If you want to buy Prop 12 pork versus traditional pork, you'll be able to have that option, and that's what the Save the Bacon Act will do. It will open up the free market again. You got to think about California. It's a huge generation of economic boom for pork producers. They're the biggest state that consumes the most amount of pork of any state, and we've seen that cut in half with double the prices of pork, and so it takes away from everyone being able to enjoy, that bacon that is so important. And so we support the Save the Bacon Act, and I really think that we have to get a hold of this before every state sets a standard, because at that point there will be total chaotic parts of the agriculture industry.
Thank you. Chairman Thompson or others, would you like to comment on that?
Just that Save the Bacon Act was in the Farm Food and National Security Act of 2024. That's why we were able to move ahead with budget reconciliation, Farm Bill 1.0 and 1.20. We already passed it out of committee in a bipartisan manner last Congress. And Save the Bacon was, which was a pretty clever title, actually. Yeah, that was in that piece of legislation, and it will be in the baseline text for Farm Bill 2.0.
I'm just going to double down on the SNAP and ENT program for the apprenticeship programs. We're actually a co-lead on Training and Nutrition Stability Act, where programs from SNAP eligibility calculations, where you're actually disincentivized, like the story that the chairman had just said. I think there's in some intuitive ways where work should not be viewed as a dirty word, but you also shouldn't disincentivize the opportunity to create a workforce. I was a chairman of a joint apprenticeship training committee, and talking about how quickly agriculture industry innovation is moving, we should be inspiring the next generation of workforce and then providing them the resources to earn while you learn, and then have real on-the-job training curriculum. And I think that's why partnering with Penn State and different universities about how we can think about creating the 22nd generation farmer. If we're already halfway through the 21st century, we have to be innovative and thinking about which way the industry is actually moving, but not disincentivizing various different apprenticeship programs.
Thank you. Question down here?
I think
Okay.
if we can squeeze all three in.
I'm Laura Jackson. Thank you for being here today. I grew up on a family farm, 700 acres in southern Pennsylvania, Bedford County. Most of it's still in agriculture. In fact, Secretary Redding was at my niece's farm, the pig farm, Elena Forest. My husband and I, though, actually own the forested part of the farm. And I'd like to remind you that forestry is a very important part of the Farm Bill. And Mike and I have been Pennsylvania forest stewards for 25 years. We got training on how to maintain forests as sustainable forests. But I've heard that 1.0 really cut the funding for private forest ownership and education. So I'm hoping you'll consider putting some money back into 2.0 because it is an exceedingly important product in Pennsylvania, part of the agricultural product. And forest products are really ranked high. But the landowners are not being educated, and a lot of them don't know how to treat invasives. They don't know how to maintain their watersheds properly. They don't know what a riparian buffer is. And we've learned over the 25 years in outreach that they're really hungering for information. But yet the Center for Private Forests at Penn State is not getting the funding that they need. And so I'd really like you to consider, look at that program that the center does. The Pennsylvania Forest Stewards are under the Center for Private Forests at Penn State, and it's a really important program. So GT, if you would be willing to address possibly funding for 2.0 in that.
We've actually increased funding for forestry. Well, it's all of it, though, public and national forests, private forests, which is most of our forests are private landowners. We have incentive programs that we build into that. They may not be called the same thing, and maybe that's why it's perceived as a cut. But trust me, being from Penn's Woods and a champion for forestry, we wanted to make sure that our landowners basically have the resources to be able to address the emerald ash borer, the spotted lanternfly, the gypsy moth, the woolly adelgid, all the threats that we have to a healthy forest. And so it may come in other forms and other names, because we did find some of the programs weren't, there was an opportunity to do things what we felt was better. But we're not looking to cut, to cut any funding there. All that, when I talk about conservation, a lot of that spills over to forestry as well. And I think we've got some really good forestry programs. I'd be glad to, connect you with part of my team to walk through those. I think you'd be pretty happy with them. I'm a forestry guy. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, so, and I get that. Yeah, and I get that part. So, yeah.
And if I could just add, along with that essential funding, the College of Agriculture this last year has looked deeply into how we're supporting private forest owners and the forestry industry, forest products industry, and we need to do more, and we have a plan to do more. So thanks for bringing this question up. Back here.
Good afternoon. My name's Charlie Porter, and I'm a farmer, and I'm with Farm Bureau, or a member of Farm Bureau. First of all, I know just about all you gentlemen. We're not real familiar with each other, but the respect, Mr. Bresnahan and I have met several times, yeah. But the respect that I have and the fellow farmers have for you gentlemen up there is tremendous. I mean, it can't be understated, the expertise and the intellect that you bring and the dedication, and I'm including our Farm Bureau president, that you bring to your job and your service to us can't be understated. Now, agriculture has a problem. I am on a statewide ag labor committee, and labor may be the #1 problem in agriculture. Yeah. Not only in Pennsylvania, but across the nation. I guess I'm not here to bring solutions, but I want to highlight problems. Year-round labor We have farmers who need year-round labor, and the H-2A program, by law, does not suffice their needs. There are people, and I know of one in this room, a dairyman, who could not find enough family labor and went out of business, went out of the dairy business, sold the cows, because he could not legally get the labor he needed to continue his operation. That is not an aberration. That is happening. We ask you to look at this. And I know you have. I know, Chairman Thompson, you had a subcommittee going, but we need solutions. The current labor situation in agriculture cannot continue. I know, and I guess I can be somewhat of a spokesman, because some of these people won't come out of the weeds and talk to you about it, because that puts a target on their back.
Right.
I had a person talk to me, I think about 2 weeks ago, that has labor that's undocumented. And if that labor went away, if they were raided and that labor went away, not only, it would probably put a real kink in that operation and maybe eventually put them out of business. These are farmers trying to serve their communities, to serve their fellow man by producing food, and this is hanging over their head like an albatross, the labor situation. H-2A labor. It has for some who can pass along their cost, it has become manageable. You know, the current cost of labor is almost $18 an hour for H-2A labor. Plus, they have to transport them, from into the country. And I know you know this. Many of you people may not know this. What goes into growing your food? They have to house them. I was in a seminar, I don't know, was it a couple weeks ago, where I learned that even the government is requiring the capacity of the buses that carry them to and from the field. It's just amazing, the tentacles of government reaching in to labor, and our producers have to comply. Now, I mentioned about passing along costs, and Congressman Muser talked about trade just a little bit ago. We have producers that have to comply with the H-2A standards and have these costs. They can't recover their costs in some instances because of imported produce from countries that don't have the same requirements for their labor. So the government's requiring them to pay and then allowing the cheap produce to come in that they can't compete against. Florida, there are thousands of growers that have gone out of business because of this conundrum that is happening. We need solutions, and you guys are intelligent. Well, I could use a lot of superlatives here, but as I said, we do respect you, and I don't know that this is the place to suggest reforms, but reforms are needed. Please.
Charlie, reforms are needed, and thank you for mentioning the task force I put together last Congress and the Agriculture Committee, and those 16 members, 8 Republicans, 8 Democrats, did a great job. In fact, if you go on my House Agriculture website, in the drop-down box, you can see the white paper, we can see the interim report and the final report, and we have taken the final report. We've taken it to Legislative Council. We've gotten legislative language. We are in the process of putting the bill together. Actually, we're using August to kind of institutionalize it, make sure that it's going to meet both producers and processors, because you can't have one without the other. And these are great jobs. They pay well. They're not easy jobs. These farmers and processors work really hard to try to find U.S. citizens that will do the job, and quite frankly, and as you know, they have to advertise when you're applying for H-2A. You have to advertise for the U.S. What a waste of money that is, because you don't get anybody coming forward. So we will be introducing in September this legislation. Now, I wish I could tell you it would be assigned to the Agriculture Committee, and I will make that request to the Speaker, but it won't be. It'll go judiciary. But I've already talked with Jim Jordan, the chairman, You know, the biggest excuse for not doing common sense things on related to immigration and workforce has been that the border was out of control. Well, I argued the border's always been under control. Just until recently, it was by the cartels who were controlling the U.S. border. But today, it's the United States of America. We're controlling our own borders. And so I think the timing is right. Chairman Jordan with Judiciary Committee is interested in moving legislation, and I think we're going to have a great bill to be able to break this gridlock and get this done. And it will address year-round. It'll take some of the bureaucracy, the cost, the challenges off the backs of the farmers, and it'll make it easier for, if someone's been working your farm every year for even the first year, and they did really well, why do we go through all the hoops to get them back? Let's make it easy for them to come back into the country so that we have that workforce when we need them as well. So just know that we're and working on a whole lot more. I appreciate the communications I've had with Trump 47. I didn't have that in Trump 45, but I certainly do now. I credit Brooke Rollins and the other cabinet members as well. And I have been leaning in on workforce. I mean, these raids on farms, and I get it. If you're here illegally or you're here temporary means temporary, but we cannot disrupt our workforce in agriculture, or we're going to have food insecurity. And with food insecurity, we have national insecurity. And so, the president has heard that message, kind of going back and forth, but I think where he's landed now is he understands we have legislation like ours that we're going to put in place, and we need to have that pipeline of available workers in place before we do send people home that need to leave because they're here illegally or they were here on parole status or temporary protective status. We're looking at all that, so we're doing it. Yeah, more than talking about it.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson. We're getting at the end of the.
Secretary.
Okay, Secretary.
Just let me jump in. I mean, Charlie, it's not. It is the number one issue. It's the number one issue. This has been a problem for 5 presidents, right? Yeah. We don't have an answer to this. But I think this is the moment of the great reveal, is that folks are now appreciating that there are folks here in agriculture adding a whole lot of value to this food system in our communities who are not recognized, right? So we have to learn how to talk about what the conditions are. There's no question that there is a correlation between agricultural progress and growth in immigrant labor, right? 68% of those in agriculture as labor and the crop side are foreign-born, right? They're leading this. I mean, we've got to figure this thing out. But we also have to be honest with ourselves of who's here. And I say this often as an ag community person, is we also have to talk about the value that they add because nobody else will. Nobody knows that. We know that. But we have to talk about what that looks like. And then figure out how do you address the issues of year-round labor? How do you figure out the issues of really skilled labor? And how do you bring them in and talk about them as community members? So I think this discussion, as uncomfortable as it is, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like the devaluing of people. I don't like that. Because when you devalue people, you devalue the industry. And there's too much conversation about devaluing of people. So to respect the food system, you respect the people. So how do we figure this out? These are tension points. But I think this is the great reveal for us, right? We cannot survive. You cannot do this. I can take you to meat processing plants. 19 languages on the bulletin board.
Yeah.
Wow. They can't all be from Adams County, right? There are 17 languages in another meat processing plant. They're not all from that county. They come from around the world. So I think the honest discussion about who's here, what do they do, the value they add, how do we appreciate them, and have that begin with the industry itself is really an important part. So thank you.
Question over here.
Hello, it's me, the fig tree. I have a question. I'm a Bellefonte resident, but I have my family has a small farm in Illinois, which is going to be coming to me, and so I need to get up and running on the farm business. And to that end, I asked what question I might ask you at this gathering, and it is this. basically, what is the government going to do with USDA reports that produce misleading information specifically on grain production to make them more accurate and up to date? The reports are driving down grain and livestock prices in a time when the ag economy is in a recession, and connected about the USDA in regards to farmland purchase loans and input financing, and will they come up with a pre-approval process for producers?
Yeah, a couple of things packed into that. First of all, you'll be happy, we did pass out of committee, and it was unanimous, a update to the grain standards, U.S. grain standards, new technology, more accountability, more oversight, and so that hasn't gone to the House floor yet, but it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think in the Senate, I think it has a good future in the Senate, and that will go a long ways of addressing some of your concerns with some of the past reporting. And the last part of your question, the pre-approval process. Thank you. Yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, especially if you're young farmers and you're out shopping around looking for acreage, and you find the acreage, you find a place that you can do what it is that you envision to do, and then you go back to your bank or farm credit or a credit union, and you got to go through all the steps, and then you get pre-approved, and then you go back to and make an offer, it's already gone. It's been sold. So we now are as part of the Farm Bill, putting in place a pre-approval process, so that they know what their line of credit would be. Also, I want to with financing through FSA, and I'm proud to say a friend of mine is the administrator nationally of FSA, sitting right here, where a lot of farmers get their loans. We've increased the loan limits because we recognize costs have gone up. And on a lot of programs where it has to be a cost share, we've actually lowered the cost share for the farmers, so that, we'll do more, and they still have to do something with some things, but they'll do less. Because we recognize, where the economics have gone. So some really good changes. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you all. I want to give each panelist a chance for a minute or two of comments. So we'll start here with Congressman Bresnahan.
Well, Charlie, I just want to echo some of your commentary there, and to validate am I on? I don't know if I'm on.
You're on.
I'm on. To validate what the chairman was talking about, literally 14 days ago, we have a memo circulating between the House Agriculture Committee specifically about the inclusion of specialty crops and dairy with the visa status programs. I mean, this is something that we are literally talking about actively, and it's one of the first things that we spoke about long ago when I was just a candidate when we did one of our first roundtables, and it has been a continual point of conversation that we can't be vilifying the relationship here with staff and with help and with our partners, because they have a vested interest in the final product and our farms and our way of life and our culture and communities. And the chairman has been just a staunch advocate working internally, and I'm very optimistic back in September our committee will be rolling up our boots here and getting to work. This was very helpful. I mean, to hear the very unique positions that sometimes you don't think about. And I think that's exactly why we try to do events like this and come together. And I'm just grateful to have an opportunity to listen and work with the chairman and Secretary Redding. I mean, we've met in a closet in Washington during a T&I hearing, and I hope you'll consider our office a resource. You have a great chairman here. In case you need some extra muscle to pay for some of those things, you reach out to us, and thanks again for having me.
Thanks, Congressman. President Hoffman, a few last comments?
Yeah, it's as a representative from 26,000 farm families across Pennsylvania, we get to see a lot of the needs that our state needs. And I will say that working with the chairman since, 2008? Yeah. One of the things is that he's a really good listener, and he's also really good at looking at solutions. And with Secretary Redding here sitting to my left, again, a great advocate for agriculture. And so, as we as farmers, as we bring our issues to them, one thing I'm very confident in, and I know is for sure, is that we have people who are willing to work for us, work with us, partner with us, as we think about how we continue to address the needs, we understand labor's a big issue. We're all about solutions, right? We've had crop damage as one of our kind of a state issue for our farmers. And we've got great inroads going with the Game Commission right now as just one thing that we've been able to come up with solutions, how we're going to fix it, how we're going to continue to mitigate problems, right? And to give solutions to our farmers for them to be successful, because no one wants to be a second generation on a non-successful farm. And so knowing that Penn State's here working hard with the research, my farm is totally different than it was when I started it in 1994, based on the technology and the resource that I have at my fingertips. And so I'm just proud to be a small part of this panel here. I look forward to working with all four of you here, and our farmers will continue to come to the table with solutions, and we'll just need your help to get them across the threshold. So thank you very much.
Secretary Redding.
Dean, thank you. And again, I'll end where I began with a simple thank you. As I look around, it's great questions, good leaders. Folks are in this conversation every day about what the state does and the federal government does. And, right, the partnership that I mentioned at the very beginning is real. I mean, the only way we get done what we need to do is through a really important partnership, right? I look at Dave Zimmerman and the conversations in the state legislature. So point is, though, that this conversation and these issues are not shared by a single level of government, right? They're not unique to. Some are initiated by, some are sponsored by, some are solved by Congress, but not all of them. And I think as I listen to the conversation, I'm encouraged because the immigration issue comes out in the workforce, the issues around food and nutrition that we've got to talk about what they are and where that division of labor is. But at the end of the day, you don't have a charitable food system in any form without a food system that's charitable. It doesn't work, right? So that issue around food and agriculture is critical. And then, of course, our conservation story as well. Final point is, I think my takeaway is always from Ag Progress days is that, agriculture is a really, really important, it's a way of life, but it's also an economic engine, right? And inside of that, I think we see the issues where there are expectations that are both food-related, job-related, economic-related, environmental-related, but quality of life-related, that we have to all balance inside of the policy work that we do. So appreciate the conversation, the insight, the partnership with us. So, and particularly to the congressman, we don't always agree. And I think this is part of the beauty of, listen, I listen to this, I appreciate that. But there are pieces that, as the chairman, he's got to figure out how that policy fits between the Susquehanna Valley and the San Joaquin Valley of California. That's a lot of space, right? I need to look at this whether it fits in the Susquehanna Valley, right, or any of the valley. So I think that's part of the challenge. Is you've got a chairman who's really rooted in PA, but it's looking across the nation, and that's a really challenging spot to be. So appreciate you doing it. It's tough duty. Looking forward to the Farm Bill 2.0. I think things we see that we really need to focus on. And I appreciate Congressman Bresnahan's focus on the LFPA and the nutrition piece we talked about in the closet. Right. Maybe we had a conversation about it. It's really important. So thank you for leading that. But I appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Secretary. Chairman.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you for, taking basically looks like 90 minutes out of Ag Progress to be able to come out and thank you for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, and just for being great listeners. If you didn't ask a question or have a question, so greatly appreciated. Really appreciate Penn State, my alma mater, Dean Ott, your leadership in this great university for hosting us here. To Secretary Redding, Russell's a close friend. And a great partner to work with. And our Farm Bureau, I've been proud to be a Farm Bureau member for a long time, actually, almost 3 decades at this point. And to have Chris Hoffman as president of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, this is a guy that lives and breathes and all those 20-some thousand families that he represents, I know he cares dearly. And I am thrilled to have Rob Bresnahan on the Ag Committee, to have a Pennsylvania backup and a guy that gets the job done and great work. Bottom line is farmers' feed and nutrition matters. And when you look at what just take the Farm Bill, the return on investment with the Farm Bill. It literally, and it sounds like a lot of money when you look at like 1.5 trillion over 10 years, 1.1 of that trillion is nutrition. It's less than 1% of what we spend nationally. But the return on investment of that less than 1%, the number of jobs, the amount of economic activity, quite honestly, the taxes that farmers and agribusinesses pay to all levels of government, food security, which is national security, improvements to the environment and to the climate, because farmers are climate heroes. Nobody does it. Nobody does it better for the climate than American farmers with what we sequester out of the air in terms of carbon, and we convert it into topsoil. It's kind of a good thing where we can grow things. I mean, and I could go on and on and on. It's just this is an amazing industry, and I appreciate the fact that you all are so passionate that you would sit here for 90 minutes and spend it with me to be able to hear and to talk about it. So, Dean, thank you so much for, and we managed to avoid the rainstorm this year.
We did. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for bringing this listening session here each year. And let's give the panelists here a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thanks so much. This is great.